Welcome back to Uncle Freddie the Limping Legend, Episode 2, Making Room for Royalty. The first episode ended where my mom's brother, Uncle Freddie, arrived in an ambulance with bandaged leg. Looking at him, I felt sorry for him, but one thought still went through my mind. We have no space, not even enough space to quarrel properly. At night, the house became a giant puzzle. Every mattress had its place. Every blanket belonged somewhere. If one person turned over, 3 other people had to turn with her. The men slept in one room, the women and children in another. By morning, someone's foot was in your back. Someone else's elbow was under your pillow. And if you were lucky enough to wake up with your own blanket still covering you, you considered it a good night's sleep. The men's room was already overflowing. My 2 older cousins, my aunt's husband from a rural area who now also came to Cape Town to look for a job, and my mother's 4 brothers somehow shared the space like reluctant bunkmates. The women's room wasn't much better. My mother, my sister, Mama, my mom's younger sister, my 5 cousins and I slept shoulder to shoulder every night in what could only be described as a battlefield of elbows, knees, and blankets. There was only one space left, the front room. Uncle Freddie decided that he wanted his bed next to the radio. Yes, next to the radio, our only window to the world. This was where we listened to our stories every day after school. Luckily for us, he was also into those stories. Televisions had not yet been introduced in South Africa at the time. The radio sat proudly on a little table against the wall. It wasn't new. Far from it. The wooden cabinet had scratches from years of use. Sometimes it spoke. Sometimes it hissed. Sometimes, if you gave it a good smack on the side, it suddenly decided to behave again. To us children, it was magic. It brought the world into our little front room. Uncle Freddie insisted the sound helped him sleep. We suspected it helped him feel less forgotten. Every evening, my mother's sister carefully cleaned and dressed the wounds on his leg before she went to bed, and my mom would do it on the weekends when she was off. Every morning before leaving for work, my aunt took over the job. It became part of the family's daily routine. At first, we all felt sorry for him. It started innocently enough. My lighty, this is a Cape Town slang word for a child, whether a boy or girl. Would you make your uncle a cup of tea? 5 minutes later, could you pass me the sugar? 10 minutes after that, I forgot the spoon. If he sighed, someone asked what was wrong. If he groaned, someone came running. But sympathy has a funny way of wearing thin. Within a week, the groaning became louder. The requests became more frequent. We developed a system. If Uncle Freddie cleared his throat, everyone suddenly became very interested in their homework. If he called one name, that child mysteriously disappeared in need of the bathroom. If he called another, someone else suddenly realized that Mama told him to go to the shop. Unfortunately, he always found somebody. The battle of the radio. By 9 o'clock every evening, the arguments would begin. "Freddie!" One of my uncles would shout from the bedroom, "Turn that radio down. Some of us have to work tomorrow." Uncle Freddie never even looked around. "You must know your place," he'd answer calmly. "I'm the eldest. Show some respect." The radio stayed exactly where it was. So did the volume. Eventually, nature solved the problem. The moment Uncle Freddie started snoring, someone would quietly creep into the front room, reach over his yellow enamel mug, and switch off the radio. It became a nightly ritual. Until one evening, everything went horribly wrong. My uncle tiptoed across the room as quietly as a cat. One hand reached for the radio, the other stretched out for balance. Then, crack! His foot caught one of Uncle Freddie's crutches. The crutch crashed onto the floor like a gunshot. Before anyone could react, Uncle Freddie sat bolt upright. Without opening his eyes properly, he grabbed the other crutch and shouted, "Aha, so it's you! You've been taking me for a fool all this time." Then he started swinging. Not wildly. Quite accurately, actually. My poor uncle danced backwards, trying to avoid being clobbered while whispering, "Freddie, Freddie, it's me!" which only made matters worse. Within seconds, my aunt switched on the light. My grandmother was shouting. The children were laughing into their blankets. My mother was trying to stop Uncle Freddie. The radio had somehow switched itself back on. And somewhere in the middle of all the chaos, Uncle Freddie was still convinced he'd caught the mysterious person who had been switching off his radio every night. Needless to say, the whole house was awake. Again. Then the brown envelopes began arriving. But that story is in the next episode.